I find that B2B content is boring and unmemorable. I read something, I can't tell you who wrote it, I can't tell you what it said. It said something about something to somebody at some point. I think everybody thinks that it's okay to speak the same dry, boring, corporate, stodgy language, to copy your competitors. Just lift their words. Nobody will notice. That just makes you memorable. That just makes you a worse copy of your competitor.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the SaaS SEO Show. I'm your host, George Hasiotis, and today I'm very happy to be joined by Vanessa Perplies. Vanessa is an external communications lead at Lusha and knows a thing or two about content. Vanessa, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks to be here. Pleasure.
Pleasure is mine. So first of all, before we get started and let the conversation unfold, could you please share a few things about your background? What has brought you to where you are today?
Sure. So I'll give you the elevator pitch first, and then I'll tell you a little bit about where I come from. I help B2B SaaS companies become well-loved brands with clear, crisp, and emotional storytelling. So my goal is to really take a company and elevate it into a brand experience that makes your ideal customers beg to buy you and become loyal brand advocates. So my methodology is very clear, crisp, and buzzword-free copy that creates a strong emotional bond with the reader and takes a stance on an issue. My background is as a conversion copywriter. I've been blessed to work in the B2B and B2B2C SaaS industry for nearly a decade. I've held a variety of roles, from content writer to content and PR lead, to external communications manager. Yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Okay, I like this. I like this piece. And what about now? You are working with Lusha, which is a B2B software company. Can you please share a few things about Lusha? What the product is, who is using the product, and who gets the most value out of it?
Great question. So I work for a company called Lusha, Lusha.com. I've been there for about 2 years. It's a sales intelligence and prospecting tool. Basically, it's geared towards BDRs, SDRs, AEs, and sales team leaders. Lusha helps sales professionals find their prospects and reach out with accurate and GDPR-aligned contact data. Basically, it's a PLG company, which means users can sign up and immediately start using the product. When I started working at Lusha 2 years ago, pretty much everyone in the space, at least in the Israeli high-tech scene, I would say, I work at Lusha, and they'd say, what's that? And now everyone's like, oh, great, cool company. So we've been on people's radars lately, and I'm really pleased to see how much the company's grown. We have over 800,000 users from companies such as Google, Dropbox, Uber, Alibaba, and a variety of SMBs and mid-sized businesses as well.
That's pretty impressive. And let me just say for the record that I as well have started to see Lusha popping up into my LinkedIn newsfeed lately. So I know the company, and I know that you're doing interesting things. Now, my first question would be, Lusha is a B2B software company, and we can all agree that B2B SaaS is really saturated, regardless of the category. And I would like to hear your thoughts and your stand as to how can a brand like a B2B software like Lusha stand out from competition. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, and if you have any specific differentiation points that make Lusha stand out from your competitors.
That's a great question. So I think there are a few reasons why we stand out from the competition. There are a number of sales intelligence and prospecting tools on the market. We're not the only one, but there are a few things that make Lusha different. First of all is we leverage an existing need. Salespeople don't come to us because they want us. They come to us because they need us. They need pipeline. They need to hit their quotas. that's never going to change. The quotas are always going to go up. I have a number of customers who have spoken to me on case studies, and they will tell me things like, every single one of my closed won deals has come from Lusha. Lusha provides me with 80% of my pipeline, XYZ. I would have no way of reaching C-level, C-level IT service software professionals in North America without Lusha. Especially in the wake of COVID, you need a direct way to get in touch with your prospects. Office numbers are a thing of the past, and Lusha makes it possible in a way which is, GDPR compliant and CCPA compliant. So we leverage an existing need. We're a must. The second thing I think which makes Lusha stand out is, unlike, I would say, the main competition, we have one main competitor and probably about 10, I would say, more minor competitors, is that Lusha is completely PLG, which means salespeople, no matter their role in the organization, they don't have to be the right, the right position in the organization. They don't have to be an organization which makes a certain amount of capital, etc. They can sign up for Lusha at any time, day or night, and for free start using the product and start pulling prospects and their accurate contact details. Could be 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, on your own time. There's no need to speak to sales. There's no need to fill out any forms. Wait for sales to contact you back, qualify you, make you sign up for a demo that you don't really want to do, and sit there waiting for them to, grill you about how long you've been in the company, how much revenue your company makes, what position you are, sign you up for a demo, based on, the thinly veiled idea that you want to spend XYZ dollars for XYZ, yearly contract. Lusha is month to month, free to sign up for, affordable if you want to continue, and you can cancel anytime, no problem.
These are all differentiation points, as I understand it, from what you're saying, are mainly based on the product. Yes?
Correct.
Yeah. How do you communicate that, though? Because I guess that, let's say that the targeting is sales professionals, okay?
Correct.
How can you take all the intelligence and all the information that you have, for example, through the conversations that you have with customers, with paying customers, for creating a case study or a customer story? How do you take that and translate that into content, for example? And how do you integrate that into your content strategy in order to reach those people? And when they read a piece of content, for example, or the copy of a landing page, it resonates with them and they want to engage further and sign up for Lusha.
Okay, great question. So it's important to note that, unlike most B2B companies, Lusha is bottom up. Sales users sign up for the product and start using it. They become power users, and eventually, they grow in the company. The contracts grow with them. Eventually, it becomes a team purchase. We usually have, a champion within the organization. But again, we're appealing to volume. We want sales at scale. We want users, regardless of, their position in the org, to start using Lusha and to love it. And we believe that they're our strongest advocates. In terms of content that we create in order to entice users to sign up, a user never has to purchase Lusha. They can use Lusha for life for free. We give them a bucket of free credits every single month, and we give them all sorts of ways to get more free credits. So there's never a need to actually purchase Lusha, which makes it a very powerful factor to sign up for. In terms of our content, we have a number of ways that we're attracting customers. One of them is heavily through SEO and search. Up until 2 years ago, Lusha did no paid marketing. Zero, zip, zilch. I don't know how to say zero in Greek, but I would say zero in Greek if I could.
It's milen.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I learned my new thing today.
Yeah.
Basically, the company, the marketing team, the customer base has grown tremendously. We've gone from about 5 marketers in 2 years to almost 30. Since then, we've built a very scaled out unit, and pretty much we're attacking content on all fronts. We have a creative team who is working heavily with our paid marketing team in creating concepts for advertisements, much like which you're probably seeing on, YouTube or, on Facebook or on Google, etc. Something that's going to be interesting, spark the attention of a salesperson, AKA, our bottom-up target user, and something with a strong CTA, strong call to action. We've actually scaled our ad spend from $5K a month to over $2 million a month. So we're not talking about, small potatoes. We have a very active social media presence. Our social media manager grew Lusha's social media presence and following by 1,000+% in 2 years. So we have a very, very, very aggressive social media growth. We're very active. We're also active at the employee level. I'm sure, as everyone knows, social media is pay to play. The Zuckerbergs of the world aren't making their money by giving it up for free. And a company's channel gets about 10% of the reach as an individual's channel. So it's good policy and it's company policy that we want our employees to be as active as possible. We offer LinkedIn audits of your LinkedIn professional, strategy sessions with how to write, LinkedIn posts, which, catch attention, get likes, comments. We have a very active strategy for growing our social media followings, primarily on LinkedIn, but on our other social media channels. We have a very, very, very strong organic and SEO magnet, which drives people to the website, blog posts, our website, which continues to grow. We're continually optimizing our product pages and doing all sorts of A/B tests, doing all sorts of things like optimizing the drop-down navigation bar and, the footers. We're very aggressive in terms of our SEO strategy. We're leveraging all sorts of middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel content on our website to capture existing high intent, as well as top of funnel, more general listicles like 10 jokes every salesperson needs to need, no existing intent. Something that I don't think is that common is we have a number of alternative pages and a number of competitor comparisons, which are directly on our website, because we want that traffic coming to us. We don't want, potential customers just to go to review sites or, third-party websites and maybe not get the full story about Lusha. We want to tell our own story, and we want to tell our own story about, why we're better than the competition, obviously in a way which is objective and, objective. I'm not thinking of the synonym at the moment, but, also shows why we're different than the competition and why, it's a no-brainer really for a salesperson to sign up for Lusha right here and right now.
Sorry, you want
Yeah. There's a lot going on. And probably PR. We can get into that later as well. But I see you want to get into the SEO questions, so I'll just pause and take a break.
Speaking of alternative pages, yeah, you got that right. Speaking of alternative pages, I wanted to ask you, doing some research for this episode, I noticed that you have a page that essentially targets the term loose alternatives for people who are either an active, user, I can only assume, of Lusha and are considering, have reached a switching moment and are considering alternatives, or for people who don't know have never used Lusha actually, and know it as a prominent player in this space and are looking for alternatives. What was interesting to me visiting that page is the fact that by the click of a button you can very easily essentially compare Lusha to some prominent competitors. And also what really struck me is the fact that in some cases, for some of the comparison points between you and your competitors, you are not afraid to tell that, for example, our database may not be as big as these, competitors, which means that in the eyes of me as a potential customer, you are as unbiased as you can be. And all you want to do is just present data that is, actual, factual, accurate, and so on. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, and whether or not you have seen that these pages can be actually effective into driving signups, and also from a product marketing perspective, educating, quote unquote, your potential customers as to how you actually compare and stack up and against competitors?
That's a great question. So I think in the beginning, we really gave thought to this mission because we said to ourselves, hey, do we want to, slap the names of the competitors on the website? Maybe, maybe potential customers will go to our competitors versus us. I think when it comes down to it, we realized and we've received proof in our data at how powerful middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel content is. These are, users on the verge of, making a buying decision. When you're looking for alternatives, you're in a buying state of mind and you're evaluating competitors. There's a need, there's most likely a budget, timeline, all those kind of great questions. For us, it was a little non-traditional, but we decided that we would move forward with the project, and it was important from a positioning perspective in order for us to tell our own story. We don't, we own our own land, so to speak, and we would let the numbers to decide. And based on the numbers that we've seen, there is a very, 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 very high conversion rate from these pages. I'm not allowed to say specifically what it is, but it's extremely high and it's extremely worth doing in our case. In terms of us having a smaller database, I think when it comes to sales intelligence, what's important for a lot of, salespeople or, potential users to realize is it's not necessarily about the size of the database. There are a number of databases which only give office numbers. Okay, they have that contact in their database, but in this day of COVID, do you really need the office number? Is that really what you wanted? You probably didn't want that because there's probably nobody picking up the phone anyway, or it goes up to an automated voice machine, or, some kind of call, phone tree, something like that. So it's not necessarily about having contacts in the database. It's the fact that for most of the contacts that we have in the database, we have actual numbers. Lusha is extremely strong on the cell phone number front, as well as providing multiple emails, not just a work email, but oftentimes even a Gmail or a personal email. And this is, done in a way which is GDPR and CCPA aligned. And there's also a very high accuracy rate of the information. So just because a provider has data in its database, it doesn't mean that that data is accurate. It doesn't mean there's any direct dial information or even a personal phone number. And you could be right back where you started from. So it's not necessarily more is better. It's more about quality and being strong in your field. Because we have almost 1 million users, what people realize is the show rate, the amount of contacts you'll find in the search really varies on many things. It varies on the geos you're looking in, the tenure of the professional you're looking for. You're going to get a very, very different show rate for C-levels versus, manager level, the industry, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not just about sheer numbers. It's about relevance to you, data accuracy, et cetera. And you can only really know this by doing a trial and seeing the solution head to head with another solution. And that's why we want people coming into the product and signing up for Lusha, because the product is so strong that it sells itself. The whole company ethos is PLG. Everything from our product to our marketing, our sales, our product's whole strategy, our CS whole strategy is based on what the user does and prompting the user to use more of Lusha. They need to have that aha moment in the beginning, and they need to see exactly why Lusha is such a great product in order to continue using it. And that's pretty much always what we're trying to push people to do, is use the product more and more, and the strength of the product speaks for itself.
One thing that I would like to add based on that and based on my question is the fact that in many cases we see, we have quite an extensive experience at this point working with SaaS companies, B2B SaaS more specifically. And we see that most of these companies are interested in creating and launching alternative pages. But one item that they are missing is the fact that in many cases, when you reach the point that you have sufficient branded search volume for your brand and alternatives, it is worth creating such a page as well, because people are not only comparing, other alternatives between one another, or searching for alternatives for one of your competitors. They may be searching for an alternative for you as well. And it's important to control, the narrative and tell your side of the story. Now, I would like to shift gears a bit and discuss something a bit different. You have experience working with B2B software companies. And the question that I have for you, specifically on the content front, is what are the mistakes that you see companies make more often when it comes to their content strategy? Do you have any specific points that you'd like to make, or any examples even that you'd like to share with us?
Okay, that's a great question. So there are a number of answers that I have to your question. I think the first mistake that I see often is that before actually sitting down and writing content, you really need to know where you stack up in the landscape against your competitors. You need to be very clear on the product, the solution, your differentiators. You need to get clear your narrative. What's your UVP? I consulted with a company recently. I looked at their website. I could not tell you in any way, shape, or form, just looking at their homepage, why I would choose this company versus a competitor. It was so general and non-specific. And I spoke to one of the founders who said, well, we're a horizontal solution. We're really for all SMBs. And I said, really? Can you tell me about how you're different from your competitors? If I can't tell that from your homepage, there's a framing issue. Like, you're still working on generalization, and you're probably going to be dealing with, price tag seekers. I have nothing in my mind which is going to help me remember you versus a potential competitor. So thinking that you're everything to everybody, thinking that everyone is your customer, not getting clear on your product, not getting clear on your solution, not getting clear on your narrative, not getting clear on your UVP, trying to be everything to everybody, and also which verticals or which industries are you specifically targeted for. Lusha is very, very clear. We're not just a B2B database. We're a B2B database for salespeople, specifically SDRs and BDRs, also for growing sales teams. We do appeal to the marketing function if it manages an SDR. We're not really a marketing solution at this point. I mean, maybe we could be in the future. We're also more, a secondary industry for us is also recruitment. We actually started as a solution for recruiters. We were founded by a team of tech specialists who worked in the recruiting technology sphere, and it evolved into a sales solution. Everything that the product does is specifically made for the SDR and BDR function in mind. We do have a number of AEs who are using it for us, but they're not our target customer. I think this is a huge problem. The second problem that I see is I find that B2B content is boring and unmemorable. I read something, I can't tell you who wrote it. I can't tell you what it said. It said something about something to somebody at some point. I think everybody thinks that it's okay to speak the same dry, boring, corporate, stodgy language, to copy your competitors. Just lift their words. Nobody will notice. That just makes you memorable. That just makes you a worse copy of your competitor. So copying the competitor, it's not necessarily right for you. It's not necessarily right for your customers. Yeah, these are the main mistakes that I see. There's probably a number of other, mistakes out there, but content which has no distinct personality, it's monotonous, it's written in dry corporate jargon that no one else can understand, sort of vanilla, it's got no taste and flavor, your brand is boring. It's written for everybody. You didn't get clear on your product marketing. You didn't get clear on who you're for, how your solution differs, what your main message is, that one thing that you want, potential customer to remember you by. And, you're trying to be everything to everybody. So these are the main errors that I see. And yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts on it, or if you think that there's, something that B2B SaaS people don't do right when it comes to writing content.
Yeah, I guess that everyone can see that there's definitely something that's fundamentally wrong with the way many, not all, obviously, we cannot generalize, but many SaaS companies do con. And I would argue that having a clear definition of who you are and how you want to perceive is definitely one of these things. And at the same time, I agree with you that like doing the same as everyone else is a big problem. And it's not just for SaaS companies. We can see it in other categories as well. Unfortunately, the web is full of content that looks like everything else out there in an effort to rank, in an effort to create something that satisfies the search engine, be perceived as something relevant, and get the rankings that will potentially get you the traffic, and so on. So there are definitely many things that are wrong, but I would also like to pose the question a bit differently and ask you, what are the things that you see, and if you have any specific examples, that would be great for us to know. What are the things that you see and the examples, the best practices that you see some companies follow when it comes to content and their content strategy and the way they approach content?
That's a great question. Something that I love, to quote the industry darling of Gong, everybody knows Gong. Something that I really appreciate about Gong is that their thought leadership is at the top level and company-wide. So you can see everybody from their CEO down to, a sales or CSM rep who is publicly posting on LinkedIn, not just about why Gong is the best and all this, corporate speak, trying to get people into their funnel, but breaking down their processes, how they do what they do, why they do the things that they do, showing their expertise while also highlighting the solution and, why Gong is a market leader. So this is something that I love. I think this is social media meets employer branding meets thought leadership done well and done right. It has to be top down, bottom up, and company wide. It doesn't work if it's just, a few people in the company do it. Management has to be aligned. It has to be something that's a decision made from the top down. Yes, we will be public. Yes, it's scary. Yes, we're going to post. We're going to post not just when we get a funding round or share a link to a PR. We're going to talk about ourselves, the things that keep us up at night, the things that we're doing well. And you really put the training wheels and the program in place that make it easy for employees to share content on LinkedIn. For example, our social media manager, who's doing a heck of a job, by the way, shout out to Danny Peterman, he's great. He's actually holding weeklies and bi-weeklies with not just management, but a number of key stakeholders in the organization from a number of departments, and he's helping them kind of vocalize their thoughts, and he's actually taking what they're saying and helping them write posts. He's not just saying, do it, here's the steps. He's actually helping them make it happen and, putting training wheels on the bicycle. I think that's one of the reasons why Lusha is doing, I think personally, not to toot my own horn, but it's doing such a great job with our social media strategy. Other than that, I really, really enjoy Grammarly's marketing. I think it's so clear what they do, who they are, what the solution solves. It's so easy to start using. Duolingo, I think, is really killing it on TikTok. They're making a language translation app fun, charming, memorable. There's that key word there. I actually remember who they are and what they do. I love Lemonade. I think their content is a breath of fresh air. There's something in it that's a bit wry, a bit witty. It's very conversational, but it's something I've noticed that this, I think, could only happen because the CEO of Lemonade, he's not afraid to talk, and he's not afraid even to get a little bit of, perhaps one could say, negative spotlight turned his way. For example, I remember a PR they did because the CEO of Lemonade had a number of his employees that were being poached by various market leaders like the Googles and the Facebooks and things like that. And they wrote, I don't exactly what they said now, but it was like 2 years ago, they wrote like a response to the companies that were trying to poach their employees, and it went public. Other than that, there was a company that was suing them for using the shade of pink that's their company logo, and they took a very ardent stand. They created a whole marketing campaign that says nobody owns the color pink. You have to have a pretty ballsy CEO to be willing to not just toot the horns of other companies, but actually take a stand and say something maybe even negative about a company. So you have to keep it real, and it has to be management down. The company's going to, the content is going to be blah, boring, corporate, a copy of your competitor if you can't get that content approved because the VP is afraid to make waves because the CEO is afraid to make waves. So that's something, it has to come from the top down. There has to be an organization that's willing to say something besides, we're so great, we're the number one, best selling, all inclusive, blah, 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 blah. Just copy and paste whatever your competitor says on their about page and insert here. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but that's why I remember Lemonade,
Yeah, and I must say that I agree with you. And for most of the examples that you mentioned, I also have a good impression about them. Not because I have used them or anything. For example, maybe we have used Grammarly or anything like that. I have never used Gong, but I have Gong in my mind as a great tool and a great company. Maybe because of the associations that I've made, that maybe the company is not directly responsible for my associations, through the content that they publish and the bold moves that they take in terms of marketing. And definitely I agree with you when it comes to the fact that content strategy has to start, from the top. And I do believe that the top has to be involved and kind of give the rhythm to the rest of the company. And also something that I liked from your blog, for example, is the fact that I saw that you had a couple of list posts with jokes about marketeers, for example, which, by the way, gave us an idea to do something similar for a new client of ours. Their targeting is website designers, okay? And we said, you know what, one of the things that we will recommend is creating a list post with jokes about website designers. I don't know if our client will accept it or not, but we will see. All I'm trying to say is that, and I totally agree with you, it doesn't have to be boring. And at the same time, I 100% agree, it has to come from the top down. Otherwise, it's just one person in the company or a team of people trying to do things while the rest is busy doing other things. I do believe that everyone has to be involved. And
you can't take a stand if nobody will greenlight or approve that. Well, that's a great idea, but we just don't do those kind of things at that company, or I'm not really comfortable with it. That's, I think, the main problem that I see with B2B. Why are B2C brands so memorable? Why are they so willing to do something bold that makes you laugh, that makes you cry? And why does all B2B sound corporate and the same? I don't fault the content marketers, I say they probably had a very short leash to work on. And if you can't get it approved, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's a great idea, but it never got on the page, you know?
You need to
Or
have the buy-in. That's true. And when you have someone
absolutely.
who is supportive and just gives you the green light, and also gives you the resources and the space that you need, I think that that's the best thing to have. Now, before we start wrapping things up, I would like to discuss digital PR a bit, and I would like to ask you if you have your own definition of what digital PR is, and also, what do you think are or should be the elements of a successful digital PR strategy?
Okay, that's a great question. In my definition, PR is how you leverage existing media, whether traditional or non-traditional digital media, to tell your brand, company, and people's story. There are two main buckets in which you can do this. One is releases. That's generally XYZ happened. You create a PR press release. You put it on the wire. You pitch it to journalists before, if it's something very juicy. A funding announcement would be an example. And then the second bucket is thought leadership. These are evergreen stories. Generally, they could be based on a current event that's going on right now, but they're generally evergreen stories that you pitch to more industry specific publications, which expertise, your know-how, your knowledge, how you do something, why you do something, generally written by C-levels and VP levels of the organization. It's basically how you're telling your story to journalists, and then how they're writing about you or using what you wrote and putting it on the wire. So there has to be an alignment between what you want to talk about as a brand, what management wants to talk about, and what the publication wants to talk about, what the journalist writes about, and what the readers from that publication actually read. And that's a very difficult thing to do, because there's been a number of times where management has wanted to speak about certain topics, but the journalist has their own ideas, and they say, that's great, but I have a story about X. I'm looking for contributors on X. So there really has to be, it's more of a conversation. There's a bit of a back and forth. You start with ideas management wants to own. You pitch those independently to journalists. You get pitches incoming from journalists. You respond to those if they're within your subject matter expertise, and you can get those in by deadline. You pitch articles, usually the listicles, the how-tos, how I did it, how I got XYZ result. You pitch management to podcasts, usually industry specific. That's pretty much what I would define as PR, but I'm probably missing something.
I like your approach, and obviously it's not a simple question. It's digital
No.
PR. It's definitely a multidimensional topic, and maybe the topic for another episode. So, Vanessa, I would like to thank you very much for joining me for this episode. I'm pretty sure that our listeners will find it very, very interesting. Now, before we go, where can people find out more about you and get in touch?
Cool. So I'm available on LinkedIn. George, if you could link to my LinkedIn, I would love anybody, who wants to speak content strategy, PR, B2B SaaS. Hit me up. I'm always happy to talk. Even if you want to just share your favorite dinosaur with me, big dinosaur lover. You want to talk about cats, internet culture, memes, any of that kind of thing. Game. If you're looking for, an amazing sales intelligence tool, you're welcome to sign up for free at Lusha.com. If you have any questions about Lusha, you're also, you can send them my way as well. Yeah, George, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure speaking with you last week. It was a pleasure speaking with you now. And yeah, if you have anything, any questions, any collaboration you want to do, pick my brain, anything you want. Want to share a dinosaur, cute dinosaur picture, whatever you want. Feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty friendly.
Will do, will do. Thank you very much
Cool.
for being on the show, Vanessa.
It was a pleasure. You have a great night, George.